Hi, welcome to this week's art vlog. I'm Alma, and I wasn't going to do an intro this week with me in it, but I realized after I filmed that I forgot to mention that I also use fluorescent yellow in this artwork, particularly on her pants and on one of the buildings in the background. So I just want to make sure that you remember to add, not be afraid of fluorescents, and to use them in your artwork. I think they're just a really great way to brighten, and I will be talking more about that in just a little bit. I also want to just say how much I appreciate you, how you inspire me to show up every week, and you keep my inspiration flowing. All the ideas I receive, I'm always thinking of ways to bring something that's useful to you. So I hope that you find this video helpful. And I just want to say a big thanks for being here. I'm starting with a canvas that's about approximately 23.5 by 27.5 inches. I purchased it in centimeters. And I started with a base layer of titanium white. Then I moved on to using alizarin crimson, which was a little bit too dark for me. So this red that you're seeing me put on this layer now is a combination of naphthol red and cadmium yellow light. So my very first tip for brightening is using the magic of cadmium yellow light. I feel like it really is just one of those colors that you can easily add to most other paint colors to brighten them. And I'll talk more about that in just a little bit. But I also want to say that burnt umber is magic to me for darkening. So try a combination of cadmium yellow light with just a little burnt umber to make some of my very favorite greens. So before I get to brightening, I just want to encourage you to either film your painting or take several photos along the way. Filming for YouTube has really helped me see and remember where I was emotionally during the painting, and has hugely helped to make me more aware and mindful in general with my art process. Photographing along the way has also really helped me with the composition and seeing if there's enough contrast in the artwork, seeing if the eye is moving around with some key placed items. Does that even make sense? Some items that are placed in key places, I think I'm trying to say. So this is something I still do even though I'm filming. I still stop and take photos along the way. There's something about seeing through a camera lens that I really find valuable. So that's something I definitely want to pass on. So bear with me as I'm going to get to brightening in a roundabout way here. So with this artwork, I started to think about where it would be going in my future home, because we're going to be moving in a few months. And I want to include this artwork on an art wall that I'm super excited to be putting together to share with you later in a future video. So I placed a ton of expectations on that idea, on some future video that would meet your approval, and on getting the colors just right for the other art that I have in mind for this art wall. And by the way, I am not fishing for approval right now. I'm just sharing my emotional process, and I hope that it really helps you. It's very similar to when I've intended to make art for some particular place or outcome in the world, like my website to sell it to others, or some show I might have, or social media even, where I hoped it would gain likes and more followers. Insecurities come up for me whenever I place my expectation on an outside entity for approval. And they come up as a way to protect me. Like they're saying, it's dangerous to expect something in return for this love that you're sharing. Art is so personal and it means so much. And it is an aspect of our love, when we are expressing ourselves with it. So my insecurities, are asking me, how has that worked out for you in the past? Beware the danger, don't do it, don't make yourself vulnerable. You're heading towards a dry well. So what happened as a result of having these insecurities kind of run amok is I did muddy the colors, and especially the chair. And you may not see it, but I really questioned, are the shadows dark enough? Are they, how will her hair fall on the chair? I just started to get really into the very minutia of it, and that's when the joy started to leave, because I wasn't painting freely. I was definitely caught up in my worries. So I guess what I'm sort of glad, really, in the end, that all of this sort of happened, because I can pass on my learnings to you. So when I filmed it, the first thing I realized is, wow, I really liked this art in its beginning stages, especially when there was still a lot of red in it. I end up painting over so much of that red later. It reminded me of Matisse's red studio painting, which, oh my gosh, it's one of my all-time favorites. And not because it looked like it, I'm not saying my art's like Matisse's, but because of the feeling that it gave me. So when I looked back at the video, I just thought, wow, like I shouldn't have kept going. So watching the video replay made me realize just how much I didn't take enough breaks, and it really made my insecurity stand out as I remembered how I felt about it. So as I allowed those color choices, the doubts regarding the color choices to take over, I noticed that I just kept covering color over color, and that's when things start to muddy up and then darken. So what that resulted in is I was able to then think about, okay, how can I brighten this artwork? And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you. It also reminded me to be even more present and to focus and appreciate what I really like the next time. So, and then also I also learned to just be mindful about taking the pressure off of myself, because with this particular painting, I wanted it done in a week so I would have something to show you. But really, I could have easily have spread it out over 2 or 3 videos, and it would have been to the benefit of the painting, and it would have been to the benefit of my mental and emotional well-being. So I definitely would have had more fun with it if I'd just been a little calmer about the whole thing. So if I do make changes to this painting, which I still may, I will definitely share them with you in another video. So on to the brightening. So here you're going to see, and I'm focusing on the chair because this is really where I just kept overdoing it. And in fact, as I'm watching this video, I'm just like, oh, please stop. Just please stop putting color. And you can see, like, under her, I've just really made it very dark. And really, when you look at her hair, you can't really see where her hair ends and the chair, that line of the chair begins. So that is really where I should have just stopped. But anyway, we can't go back in time. Okay, so it's about here where I really want to add more contrast and brightness. So I'm adding that cadmium yellow light, and I am mixing it with white. I think it works with the 2 small tables and the lamp, and also to give a little bit of pop to her pants. I like its use of it there. I think that, however, there's a tendency, especially when one is new to art, to use a lot of white to brighten. And in fact, it doesn't really do the job effectively. Adding white to red only makes pink, right? But using a little bit of, like I said, the cadmium yellow light does a better job of creating that undertone, that sunny brilliance in a color. And I do mix it with some more naphthol red on the chair to brighten it. You'll see that happen in just a little bit. The second color that I love to use, or excuse me, the second type of paint is fluorescent paint. So here, that orange on that small artwork is actually the brand Artist Loft by Michael's Arts and Crafts. I like affordable fluorescent paint because it's not as powerful, and you can still see, because it's transparent, the underlying layers. So here's a photo of where I am at this point, and I stopped for the night, and I don't really realize at this point that the shutters are really causing me a problem. I think that it's the red. And so I will continue to cover up more red as time goes on until I realize that the shutters are really causing a big problem because they're too dark, they're too bold, and too prominent, and they kind of take away from the details of the artwork. This pink floor, one of the things that gives it its brightness is another fluorescent color. And I should mention that I am using several acrylic gouache paints by this point in the artwork. And the acrylic gouache that I'm using for that pink floor is opera. So I use a little bit of opera in some white to create that brightness. And then I will also be using by Holbein another fluorescent, which is luminous orange. So even though I used the Michaels brand for a little bit of the brightness, the luminous orange really packs a punch, and you'll see that. I'll use it here. I'll point out when I do use it. I do want to mention here with these dogs that you see that the dark is not black. It's actually burnt umber and aquamarine blue. I feel like it's a beautiful color combination to use instead of black. It's, to me, more sophisticated. It tends to not muddy as quickly as like a jet black would. It just has more nuance of tone. So I do recommend that color combination for darkening. Okay, so as this painting progresses, I also want to point out here the leaves, adding color, and actually Matisse did this a lot. He used color as contrast in one against the other. Don't be afraid, I guess, to put a little brush stroke of yellow or a limey green on top of a very dark leaf, or consequently you could add a stroke of maroon red to darken a leaf. You don't have to use green or even the same green that you've been using. You can always alter the color completely. So this is what I mean where I'm using, you don't see me mixing the color, but I just added more of the red and the yellow blended together to add brightness to the chair. And I'm mixing fluorescent, like the opera, with red and white, pink for her sweater. And it just gives it that, rich kind of color. Now, the chair is still struggling there by her head. It's still pretty dark there, and I will brighten it up more with some more orange, particularly the luminous orange. So here you can see I'm using magenta and cadmium yellow light to make a brighter, pinky orangey color, and this is how I end up really adding brightness to this chair. And I feel like, it's not my ideal, but I feel like it did the job in terms of creating that definition between her hair and the chair, and it just kind of blends a little bit better. You can see that I'm also adding more of the fluorescent to the artwork on the right. And in fact, this is where I do use the luminous orange by Holbein because it just packs more punch. Now this green, this Kelly green, is very brilliant. And again, this is cadmium yellow light with turquoise. And you can just see cadmium yellow light is such a magical color, you guys. You saw me too adding opera, that pink, to the purple for the shutters. I'm still convinced that I can make the purple work, but in fact, it doesn't work, and I will eventually cover that up, as I've already said. Now I'm just repeating myself, but I just want to make sure that I don't miss anything. The building is getting a pop of color, the orange with the luminous orange mixed with a little bit of white. And how I made the lilac of the middle building pop a little bit more is by adding a little bit of blue to the lilac, or I think actually it's that purple combination for the shutters. And so, obviously putting a darker color against a lighter color is always going to make the lighter color look even brighter. Here you can see on her pants and on the piece of furniture that I am using fluorescent. On her pants it's the opera, on the furniture it's the luminous orange, and you can see that the orange is much more brilliant than the Michaels brand, that again is more transparent. But you can see that a little fluorescent really goes a long way on the left hand side, on the left chair, and here you can see I'm incorporating it even more into the bigger red chair, and it does work. I mean, it helps, right, to add that fluorescent. And you can see here I'm adding it to the rug. I'm just kind of going crazy now because I'm kind of panicked about the whole painting in general, and I just really want it to be bright and cheery and happy. So I'm covering up the red even more with the, this is where I know that where my state of mind was. I thought, oh, I need to put the wall behind the glass shutter. That makes sense. When you start to think in realistic terms when you're painting, that's when you know that the mind is winning over the creative process, because again, it wants to be logical. So finally, I am minimizing the shutters by giving them this light blue. It's the same blue that I used for the furniture, and I just added white to it. And because I used it in the shutters, now I feel like I need to incorporate it in other parts of the painting so that it feels more cohesive. And I think it works. I mean, I think whenever I look at the painting now, when I walk out of the room and then come back to it, I feel like I still wish I'd left more red. So that's something I still may do. Now, here is taupe. Now, I think this works because the darkness of the taupe just made everything kind of pop. So even though I did like the creamy wall, I like the taupe even better. And how you get taupe is by mixing equal parts of blue, red, and yellow. And you can lighten it with a little bit of white, and you can darken it. I would personally darken it very sparingly with black, or I would mix up some of the ultramarine blue and burnt umber to give it darkness if it needs it. But in this case, I just mixed equal parts of the red, the blue, and the yellow to make the taupe. And then I'm just adding it, to details on the dog and around the canvas. And so that's it, you guys. I feel like, the contrast works. I am happy with it overall. I do love it. It taught me a lot. I especially appreciate that I took this passion I have for this style of illustration and I put it on a larger painting, and I'm proud of myself for doing that. And I'm basically getting inspired by my sketchbook, which makes me really happy. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, please do give it a thumbs up. I'm so grateful for you guys. I really appreciate you. Please let me know if you have any questions. Happy creating.